Hey guys, what's going on? So I'm here with Mike. You've seen the video we did of his R8, VF Supercharged R8, and the Porsche 2019 Porsche Turbo S. Now we're going to interview him and talk about his life experiences and things like that. What brought Mike into the supercar world. So I got some questions. I'm going to be all professional this time. So Mike, go ahead. What got you into it? Well, hold on. Let me ask you something real quick. And you can, I was doing some research on Mike, and I'm actually really nervous to interview Mike now. I wasn't before, now I am. Mike's like my hero because I play Call of Duty, and, well, he's a good guy. So you grew up in Waterloo, Iowa. Mm-hmm. What was the population there?
So it's kind of like Minneapolis and St. Paul in terms of it's a kind of a twin city with a town called Cedar Falls. That whole area has about 100,000, so it's not really too dissimilar to here in that it has everything you want, but it's not a big city, So it's a good place to grow up. Not a lot going on, but it's a good slow pace of life and a lot of good kind of family values. So I enjoyed it.
What brought you to Texas?
So after spending a little over 12 years in the military, I was just looking for a place that, was centrally located in terms of what I do with the dogs and, but also relatively mild climate. And, it just seemed to kind of work out. I mean, the state business tax wise is a good place to be. Mm-hmm. Like the culture of the people kind of aligns with, what I've turned into, I guess, over the years as I've grown up. And, so it just kind of seemed like a natural fit.
Yeah, for sure. So me and Mike met at a car meet, I guess it was a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
About a month and a half ago, Jonathan with the other R8 introduced us, and we got to talking, and at that meet, I just noticed Mike was just a real cool, down-to-earth guy. I didn't know crap about Mike, and come to find out Mike has a podcast, Mike's wrote some books, and Mike does some really amazing work with ex-military dogs and training dogs. And that's really, really cool. What got you into training dogs?
So as far as the dogs go, it was, I growing up in Iowa with, a lot of my friends' dads did duck hunting and had field labs for that. So we had a lab growing up that kind of kickstarted everything, but for me, I was just always a dog guy. Like I always really liked dogs. I mean, most people do, but for me, it was kind of, taking it to the next level. I was just really into spending time with them, hanging out with them, and appreciated what they could do, whether it was, breaking through brush to, get into an icy pond to grab a duck that had just been shot, or, something as simple as, finding little pieces of food under 12 inches of snow in the middle of winter or whatever. I kind of marveled at their capability, even at a fairly young age. And then fast forward, I got into hunting dogs, hog hunting dogs for a few years, and then ultimately being in the military, seeing the capability of the military working dog and kind of what they could do, with the genetics and the line breeding that's been taking place for generations. I just was completely fascinated by it. And so there was a particular instance overseas on a combat deployment to Iraq where there was an explosive detection dog that was responsible for saving the lives of a number of Marines in the area that we were at. And for me, that's just kind of where it clicked, where we had been in the same situation that they were in countless times and never had a dog with us. And so from that day forward, which was back at the start of the Iraq war in late spring of '03, all the way up until now, I just couldn't get enough of it. And so from then until late '08, when I got out of the Navy, I did everything I could to be a part of any dog group or club, or even working with some of the guys on base or whatever, and I just couldn't get enough of it.
Now, I do have one question, and I tried to find this, and I probably just my Google idiot self. Do you have a nonprofit that people can go donate to the retired dogs you work with?
I do. So I founded the Warrior Dog Foundation we just had our 10-year anniversary this month, as a matter of fact. So we've taken in just under 200 dogs at this point, and this is from police, from military, from Federal Protection Services, Customs, Border Patrol, any federal law enforcement entity that uses them, even State Department contract dogs, you name it. And so what we do with them is act as a resource primarily to keep them from being euthanized. Now, I'll caveat that with these dogs are dogs that, historically would have been euthanized if we don't take them. And that's not most military or police service dogs. Most of them don't get in that position. These are kind of the Hannibal Lecters, if you will. They're the special cases that have bit a bunch of the wrong people and have had issues with handler aggression or unpredictability or, any number of those types of occurrences where, the department or the military unit gets to the point where, from a liability standpoint, the dog has become a liability as opposed to an asset, and they're going to euthanize them. So that's where we step in and we take the dog, and then we rehab them as long as it takes until we can either repurpose them to another department if they're young enough, or adopt them out to a civilian counterpart. If we're able to do that. Some of them we can, some of them we can't. Some of them we just act basically as a sanctuary for them to live out their years as a dog and not be euthanized. So for me, it's an important mission in terms of, even though some of these dogs are a real motherfucker to deal with, frankly, I still, I think we owe it to them to give them, their best shot at either rehabbing or at least giving them a place to go out to pasture, so to speak, given their service to this country.
Oh, that's 100% on par, because, they're giving up their life or giving us their shot at life, and that's the least we as humans can do.
Yeah. So
I ask everybody viewing from now to the future, if you would go to that, I'll put a link down in the description. Go to that, donate $1, $5, $10, $100, whatever you can donate. And we're going to put some donations in ourselves to help with these dogs and things like that. That's something that's amazing to me. Just most people, they see dogs as just dogs.
Yeah.
To you and I, we talked about this earlier. I like dogs more than people. Mm-hmm. Dogs are loyal. Dogs give a shit about you.
Yeah.
Dogs happy to see you.
Yeah. Even if they hate you, you at least know it.
Yeah.
They're not going to be friendly to your face and secretly not like you.
Yeah. They're not going to lick you, and as soon as you turn around, bite the shit out of you.
Yeah.
Well, maybe some of them, but for the most part, I would say 99% are really good animals.
Yeah.
So you touched on one of my questions I have for you, but how me and Mike met was just cars. I'd like to one day get deeper into Mike's past because it's really, really intriguing. I went kind of like the brakes thing. I went into a rabbit hole looking into Mike and finding out about him and just some of the stuff he's done, his past, his life. He's lived an action hero life. They need to make a movie about this dude. Maybe you can get Arnold to play him.
Well, shit, he's a vegan now. I don't think he wants to play me.
Yeah, maybe you can get Sylvester Stallone. He's cool too.
Yeah.
So you served our country, you put in tons of time with our country, you do great work with dogs that have been serving our country, our cities, and everything else. What do you do for fun?
So that's really where cars step in. I do enjoy working out and shooting and camping, hiking, kind of the standard things that I think most people would assume a former SEAL would be into. But that doesn't consume me really, and it's those are all things I've done my entire life. And so while I still enjoy them, they don't give me the same kind of level of exhilaration that driving fast cars does. Ironically, dogs are actually the reason that I'm into cars, though, in a kind of a roundabout way. I sell personal protection dogs and have for over a decade. And so I sell, a number of these dogs to high net worth folks all over the country, all over the world, year in, year out. And so, strangely enough, growing up, I never gave a shit about cars. I wasn't into them. I wasn't the kid with the Lamborghini poster or, the Ferrari Matchbox or anything like that. I just didn't care. It served no purpose. I had no interest. I'm sure a lot of it is because the thought of being able to afford one at that point was so far fetched that it seemed so unrealistic that it wasn't even worth really fantasizing about, in my opinion. And so they were very, cars to me were purely utilitarian. My first car was a a 1996 Volkswagen Jetta TDI. They got 55 miles to the gallon, you know, and I drove the shit out of that thing. I put over 300,000 miles on it, you know, and I had it for a long time. That was the only car I had for, you know, well over a decade. And so it just, you know, for me, it was point A to point B. I didn't care how fast they were. I didn't care what they looked like. You know, I wanted to get the best mileage I could and be able to carry what I needed to carry, and that's really it. Mm-hmm. Fast forward, you know, being in the position where I'm, you know, delivering a dog to guys that are worth, you know, $500 million in many cases, and sometimes even several billion, you know, and they've got these garages filled with, you know, the type of cars that you and I like now. Again, like at first I was just like, yeah, it's great. You know, you got $4 million worth of cars sitting here that you don't drive, big fucking deal, you know, and, but you know, as I got more of an appreciation for them after the first time I was allowed to drive one, everything changed. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like getting laid for the first time. Yeah. You know, I mean, it was life changing. It really was. Like, I got it. You know, like the first time I drove something fast, I was like, holy shit! Like that. Now I get it. You know, and it was, you know, it was visceral. It was exciting. It was. You know, I've jumped out of airplanes. I've been to war. I've you know, been in combat diving scenarios that would make you know, most people blow their anal glands. You know, and you know, even now, you know, being in a bike suit is pretty adrenaline pumping and exhilarating to experience. Even though I've been doing it a long time, it still makes your ass pucker a little bit when you do it. But this was that same kind of feeling. You know, it was just that raw, just, you know, throw your head back type of torque and power and acceleration. And I was totally hooked, you know. And so being in a position where, you know, sometimes I'm able to drive these cars or even ride in them or see them and, you know, talk to guys that are into it and whatever. I just, you know, over the last few years have gotten way more into it, as well as, you know, the last few years business has, you know, gotten better and better each year. I you know, been in business now for over a decade on my own, and you know, just as it's progressed each year, I've gotten more and more into the position to be able to experience those types of cars, and so it's just kind of all melded together that way. And for me, I think also is that as busy as I am with everything else, having, you know, a car or two that's really fun to drive and really fast, you know, just sitting in the garage. You know, like boats, you know, it's an all-day thing to load a boat up and the upkeep and where you store it and towing it, and, you know, just that whole production that boats or jet skis are, or planes or anything like that. Even vacations, like I almost always have a couple of dogs here that I'm working for people. So, you know, for me to take a vacation and be gone for a week is almost impossible also. So, you know, for me, it's kind of like a mini vacation for a couple hours to go out most nights, jump in one of the cars and go experience it and have lots of fun.
That's what I try to explain to a lot of people, and I think I've touched on it in other videos, that driving a supercar, even a fast C7 or a fast Corvette, I've never done cocaine or anything. I smoked weed back in the day because I was crazy, but that's the biggest adrenaline rush, I think, outside of what you did in real life as a job, that you could do. You know, you get the adrenaline rush. When I used to race street bikes, I'd get those times to where you're going home and it never fails. After you get adrenaline rush, it seems like you got to take a shit. And you're sitting there and you're calming down and you're in the restroom and you're like, shit, I could have died tonight, you know? And that's what you faced as a business or as a job, you know, serving our country. And then now you were able to turn that into something fun to do on the weekends, you know, without somebody shooting at you or throwing anything. And I mean, if it makes it more fun, we can bring guns. I'll start shooting at you while you're going. Yeah,
I mean, you know, I'll probably pass on that, but, or I'll shoot back, I guess. You know,
so we're not doing that.
I mean, you know, for me, I think, you know, for any veterans out there, finding something, you know, that fills that void that you come to you know, almost expect and need, frankly, you know, having been to combat or just being in that position where you're volunteering to potentially give your life for your country changes people, you know, when you're actually in the environment where that may happen, you know, and that feeling, you know, I think not unlike the way your brain responds to chemicals, i.e. drugs or pain medication or whatever, is that, it gets used to it, and then you got to do a little more, and then a little more, and a little more. And so it's kind of that same thing. When guys get out, I think a lot of vets are miserable because they don't have something that does that for them. And to me, what I love about cars is it's not drugs, it's not, violent, it's not, anything really negative. Yeah, I mean, there's the element of going faster than you should and being in traffic scenarios that are potentially dangerous. But shit, driving a 96 Jetta TDI in traffic is dangerous, by statistical comparison. So, to me, it's a nice way for me to still have that experience in a relatively positive manner and kind of scratch that itch, if you will.
That's a great point that I thought about asking. I didn't know how to bring it up, but you kind of brought it up. You got some people have the PTSD, which you would think anybody who goes to war and goes through that scenario would have. My brother-in-law now, he's a vet, and he goes through times where he's struggling. And does that help, you think, with the PTSD a little bit, having some kind of leverage or another way of doing something to get that adrenaline going? Could that be, I guess, part of PTSD is you go from all these scenarios to just nothing, watching TV and shopping at a grocery store?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. I mean, one, I think, PTSD, the way that it's, kind of marketed, if you will, in the mainstream, whether it's through movies or media, is largely misrepresented. And I say that because, yeah, I mean, most people that have been in scenarios like that have some element of that has an impact on them, whether it's, full blown into where it's a disorder for them or it just affects them in a certain way is going to vary from person to person. The way that it manifests in people varies drastically from person to person too. Similarly with dogs. Dogs experience that same thing. Some dogs get aggressive, some dogs shut down, some dogs, become nervous. There's a lot of different ways that happens, just like with people. And so, how you kind of assuage those feelings, I think, at least for me, and I think with most people that I know well that have done similar things, is that, my ability to put all of my time and energy and mental bandwidth into my business and working hard makes a huge difference because it's purpose, and to me, everybody always wants to know what's the secret to being happy or whatever. And to me, hands down, it's purpose. It isn't money. Yeah, I mean, I know lots of people that have more money than I'll probably ever even consider being able to have, who are fucking miserable. And I know people that are broke as shit that are the happiest, people I know. And so it's not things, it's not cars, it's not women, it's not money, it's not watches, it's purpose, really. I mean, if you get up every day and you truly believe in what you're doing and it excites you, you're going to be happy, irrespective of what you have or don't have. So that's number one. And then number two is that if you have spent, a fair bit of your adult life being in situations that are exhilarating and that are, filled with adrenaline and are dangerous and whatever, and you become almost numb to that where it doesn't affect you the same way. Now, when you get out, if you don't have purpose and you don't have anything that scratches that itch, that's a deadly combo, a dynamic duo of dangerous, frankly. And that's why I think a lot of guys are really miserable, and why you see a high suicide rate with combat veterans is because of that. Is because they're used to being a soldier, whether they're a SEAL, a Ranger, an infantry guy, a grunt, a fucking admin, whatever. Is that their identity is a big part of that. Is that I'm a warfighter, I'm a professional soldier. When you lose that, and now you're Jake the insurance guy, or whatever normal job you have that's not sexy by comparison, it makes you feel less. Then you combine that with now not having those same experiences with your brothers in arms and doing dangerous, fun, exciting shit that when you're done, similarly, you're like, God damn, how did we not die doing that? Those two things, when they're now all of a sudden they're gone, it's easy to understand why people are miserable and end up starting a pistol because they just, they are like, what's the point? And so to me, filling your life with those two things, with that type of background, is really the key to success to being happy.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been in that situation, so I wouldn't know how to explain I wouldn't say overcome it, but cope with that. And that's probably the best I've ever heard, And there's a lot of people who want to talk about it, but they don't know how. There's a lot of people out there who have avenues to help these people, but don't, you know? And like you said about money, money don't buy happiness. We both know that. I've been super poor, and I wouldn't consider myself the richest person in the world, but I don't know, that sometimes I've been happier broke than I have been with money, you know? Because hell, I didn't care if my lights didn't get paid at the end of the day, you know?
Well, more money, more problems. Right?
Oh yeah, that's 100%. So what's your goal? What's your dream car? I know the cars you have now, but what is your dream car?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's weird because it you know, almost like the weather or maybe taste in women, it changes a lot. You know, I mean, the two cars that I have now were dream cars until I owned them, you know, and not that I don't like them. I actually love both of them. You know, but there's things about them that, you know, that I would change or like better or whatever, you know. So, you know, the one thing I will say is that I for a while now, I've kind of always wanted a Ferrari. I really like the F8 Tributo, the 488 Pista, with that sharing the same engine. The Pista is a little more capable, but not nearly as refined and luxurious, which for me, like, I'm happy and man enough to admit, like, you know, whether it's the hardtail motorcycle or the you know, the GT2 RS, you know, type of mentality of, like, you know, track focused, like performance at all costs. Like, for me, that just isn't for me. Like, yeah, I wouldn't mind spending an hour or two beating the shit out of it on a track or something like that. But to have, you know, and drive and enjoy, like, I like a nice car where it's nice inside, you know, and that's one of the things I really like about both Porsche and Audi, is that their interiors, which, you know, they're all under the Volkswagen Auto Group, so it stands to reason, but is that I like a nice, refined, comfortable, you know, creature comforts with, you know, Apple CarPlay and a nice stereo and good AC and ventilated seats in this damn state in the summertime, and you know, a car that I wouldn't mind driving all day long or going on a 3-day road trip with, you know. So that F8 Tributo being kind of a nice mix of those two, I would consider, you know, that maybe a dream car. But the R8 has been, you know, and now that I have it, I certainly like it. You know, there's some things about it that I could change, specifically the handling. But and then the 911 Turbo S, the 992, the new one coming out is one that is, you know, probably on the list as well, or I would say it's comparable to an F8 in terms of me wanting one. I'm not. Like, I don't look at Bugattis or Koenigsegg's or Paganis or cars like that in that multi-million-dollar range as something that I really want, frankly. You know, to me, the R8, the Huracan, the 911, you know, the kind of nice mix of everything that's still reasonable by relative standards price-wise, you know, I think just makes more sense. And I just really have no desire to own a, you know, $2 or $3 million car. That's just me. Like, I appreciate them, but they're not really something that I would buy even if I could afford one. Not that I can, but so anyway, long story short, I think, you know, if I had to pick one, it would be probably the F8 Tributo or a 992 911 Turbo S. But it's not really picking one, I guess, is it?
No, but I mean, sometimes you don't have to have just one. I mean, mine was between the 720 and the SV Lamborghini. We got the 720 and it's crazy fast now. Love the car. The only thing that scares me, I'm like you get used to your power and you want more. Well, you get bored with your car and you want something different. I don't know what the hell can be different or faster than the 720.
Well, yeah, especially the modded 720. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
so we're going to see how that works out. But I love what you talked about, the Bugatti, the Huayra, and things like that. I'm the same way, because say I hit $50 million on the lottery tomorrow, I would be that guy that everybody on the internet hated, because I would go buy a LaFerrari, I'd find an exhaust for it, I'd find a way to tune it, and I would go put 10, 20,000 miles on that car. And when someone says, well, your LaFerrari is worth $1 million now, who gives a shit? My money was free.
Yeah,
you know?
It was well worth it.
Yeah, you know, I dog the shit out of that car. I don't want a car that I park and I drive on the weekends 20 miles because my loan guarantee or my insurance says I can't drive it further.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I mean, shit, that R8's 2020, and I bought it in March. And it was down in Houston getting the VF Supercharger put on it for almost 6 weeks, and I've got 5,000 miles on it. I drive the shit out of that thing. The 911 I just got, put over 1,000 miles on that in a week and a half or two. So for me, it's like I didn't buy them not to drive them. And half of knowing what I want and what I like and don't like is doing exactly that. I mean, just like with you, I know we've talked about this. I mean, I've had 8 or 9 cars in the last 3 years, that I thought, I would like more than I did or whatever. Just got them and put a few thousand miles on them, got rid of them, got something else. But each time I do that, I learn, what I like, what I don't like, what I want, what I don't want, what's important and what's not. And so to me, that's half the fun. Honestly, it's an expensive test drive, but to me, driving somebody else's for an hour, or God forbid, going to a test lot, which, most places aren't going to let you test drive any of the cars that you really want to drive anyway, or they're not broken in, or you can't put them in anything other than comfort or whatever. And you don't really get a sense for what the car is like. And so, to me, that's the best way it's really the only way to truly understand what the car is, what it's not, and whether or not you like it. But, I'm certainly having a lot of fun with both of them.
We got past the cars. I don't want to eat up too much of your time. We got into the foundation. There was something else there's 2 things I actually wanted to talk to you about. And I didn't research this. Well, I found it online. So I wanted to ask the question, but my wife actually said she saw this. I actually saw the video. So I was reading your bio, and something that just totally had me laughing probably a good 5 minutes was you're credited with something very big on the internet.
I already know where this is going.
Is it true though? The Epstein didn't kill himself came from you in an interview. Well, the meme was help keep going with you.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I didn't invent that saying or whatever. I mean, Rogan had been talking about it for a while before then, and other people had too. I think the situation that I was in is that because I'm a dog guy, and I go on different national media outlets, really any time a big military dog operation, whether it was the Bin Laden raid when there was a dog, and that's where my first book really was kind of born out of, was the public's fascination with soft special operations using dogs in that capacity. But in any case, I was on Fox News with Jesse Waters, his program, and it was after the ISIS raid where Baghdadi was taken down by a dog, and so they brought me on to just ask a few questions about that. And my goal was to relay a public service message, just in terms of, when things like that happen, all of a sudden people that have no business owning that breed now all of a sudden want a Malinois puppy. And, people are reaching out like, hey, do you have any pups for sale? Hey, I want to buy one of these dogs, whatever. And my point was, trying to get one of these dogs as a puppy and do it yourself is a disaster. I mean, it's no different than if you've never laid stone, buying a couple pallets of bricks and trying to brick your own house. Like, it's going to look like shit. So, and ultimately the dog suffers. And so my point was to just say, instead of doing that, either buy a fully trained dog from a professional or just don't get one. But where I threw that, and then at the end of that, I said that and Epstein didn't kill himself. And it was at the very end of the interview, and Jesse almost missed it. He was like, wait, what? Wait, what did you just say? And he just started laughing, and then, the interview was over, and then he and I talked after that for a few minutes, and really it was just a joke. That's really all it was, is that he was kind of frustrating me with his interview in terms of they were pretty shallow questions, and it just kind of seemed like he was kind of scoffing about the whole thing, like it was just kind of almost like a B-roll kind of piece or whatever. And so I was just kind of irritated, and I was really just fucking with him. Yeah. I also didn't assume that they would keep it in because it was not a live recording. That's what most people don't know.
I'll say, yeah, I thought it was live.
Yeah, is that we actually taped it on a Friday afternoon, and it aired Saturday night. And on my way into the studio, I saw a bunch of memes, and it was at that time where the Epstein didn't kill himself memes were really popular all over social media, and a bunch of them were hilarious, and so I saw a bunch of them on the way, and it was just totally off the cuff. Like, I didn't plan on saying that. I was just messing with them, not thinking that they're going to keep it in anyway, and it was just a joke, me being a smart ass, really. But then they aired it, and I mean, I'm not kidding you, like 20 seconds after the show aired, my phone I was getting calls from people that I hadn't talked to in 20 years, and it was everywhere. I mean, it was all over, it was on big news outlets. It was on, Joe Rogan reposted it. It was Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It was everywhere. And hundreds of millions of views all over the world saw it. And so for a couple of weeks, like, it was just nuts, I was hearing from people that, again, I didn't even, I was like, how did you even get my number type of stuff? But so that's really it. I for sure would not credit myself with that saying or whatever, but for whatever reason, just me saying it the way that I did on that program at that time really kickstarted it into kind of a viral saying. And now there's, t-shirts, with that saying, for sale all over the place. And yeah, it was a pretty wild couple of weeks. But
so with you having your own podcast, which I'm going to link down in the description below, it's called Mike Drop. How do you look up to people like Joe Rogan they're not scared? I mean, someone nowadays would say something like the Epstein stuff. I mean, they would basically be scared the Clintons are going to come after them. You and me, we live in Texas, so we don't care. But do you look up to people like Joe Rogan? I mean, that dude is crazy.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, to me, he's pioneered the podcast game, really.
Mm-hmm.
He was really the first big podcast guy, and it's kind of set the tone. And to me, what's encouraging and refreshing and inspiring about him specifically is that, you look at this Spotify deal as an example. It's $100 million deal for basically an exclusivity contract so that everything migrates over to Spotify September 1st. And a lot of times I think people see that and they think, how does that even work, or how is that a win, for Spotify? Like, how do they make any money paying him that much just to host his podcast? Well, one, it's exclusive, so their advertising budget just skyrocketed. But more importantly is that 48 hours after they signed that deal, their market share in terms of their value on the stock market rose almost $5 billion in 48 hours from signing that deal with them. So Rogan gets paid, he gets $100 million out of the gate, and Spotify just increased their net worth by $4.8 billion. But to me, as a podcaster, what that says even more is that podcasting is absolutely a legitimate media platform that is here to stay. What I love about it personally is the fact that there is no bullshit middleman with it. There's not some marketing team or an HR rep or a vice president that doesn't like you, that doesn't want you talking about transgender issue. I mean, whatever it is, there's none of that. There is no filter between me and the public or anybody who does it and the public. It's raw. It's completely uncut. And it's whatever you want to do. It's who you want to talk to. You ask them whatever you want. It's as long as or short as you want it. And there's no in between. And I think the public is starved for that. I mean, clearly they are, or podcasts wouldn't be as popular as they are. And so I've taken that mentality into my show nonstop. And I've always taken that approach in terms of, I don't say anything with the intent on pissing people off. I'm not the Howard Stern approach of the shock jock of trying to do things that are controversial and get a rise out of people. On the same token, I don't care if I do. That doesn't enter into my thought process when I'm asking questions or developing an outline to interview somebody as to whether or not people are going to take it the wrong way or whatever. It just doesn't account for anything. And again, because there's so little of that in the mainstream media, and even with a lot of other podcasts that are bankrolled or produced by bigger media outlets or whatever, they have that same problem. And so the gems out there that people truly are in a position where they don't need to give a shit. Because let's be honest, a lot of people do, like they're going to lose their job or whatever. They're just. I've been very, very fortunate to be in a position both financially and business wise, where I cannot care what people think, where a lot of people have to care what they think if they want to be able to feed their kids. And I am not naive to that. I don't take that for granted. I don't think everybody can just go do whatever they want. That's not how the world works. But to be in a position to really be able to do that, is pretty amazing on my end. But so that's kind of been my approach.
That's why I look up to guys like you, guys like Joe Rogan, in a world where everything's filtered or censored, or you can't drop the F-bomb, which I get on basic television and stuff like that. But you got people out there like Cardi B who's dropping, WAP about wet ass pussy, yet that's going mainstream, and she's talking to what could be our soon to be president doing interviews. It's like, hold on, you're talking to a stripper who used to rob men and just put out a song like this, yet we got to watch what we say every time we get on TV, we get on Facebook, we get on Instagram, everything's censored. But you got people like you got people like Joe Rogan. And part of why I like my channel, and I tried to censor myself and I just got told to stop, be yourself. And I can look up to guys like you and Joe Rogan who you're not censored. And that's why I respected you from the minute we started talking. I mean, it was just real, no BS from the day we met to every time we've talked on the phone, been around each other, it's been no BS. So I really, really look up to you for that and the service you gave our country, of course.
I appreciate it. Likewise.
I have two questions. Were you raised, because my series is about supercar owners are all rich, are all wealthy people born with money. Were you raised super rich?
No, I mean, far from it. I wouldn't say we were dirt poor, but we damn sure had nothing in excess. I mean, car-wise. Well, so the house we grew up in, there's 6 of us. There was a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. And we had a Ford, I'm trying to think of the model. It was an Econoline, 6-passenger van. That's what we had. It was the only vehicle we had for a while. And that was it, and so like I said, my dad had an older, just 6-cylinder Mustang that wasn't anything special, but it was like a late 70s model, I think, that had a bunch of miles on it. It was just kind of a beater car, really, but that he used to go back and forth from work for part of my childhood. I never drove it, only rode in it really a few times, but like I said, I mean, it was the bottom of the barrel. It wasn't a GT 500 or any type of thing like that, or a Shelby or whatever it was. But that was it, and so we didn't have really anything in excess. So and even growing up that way, and seeing other kids that their parents did have it or whatever, like I never despised them or whatever, but it also didn't really motivate me. Just like things like that weren't really important to me growing up. I didn't really ever look at money as a measuring stick of any kind, good or bad. It was kind of a non-factor. So, and even now, I certainly still don't. I mean, to me, I view money as kind of a means to an end in terms of, my goal is to get to a point where it doesn't matter, or, I don't have to worry about it, at least month to month, and that's been, kind of my slow progression in terms of a goal to be able to accommodate the lifestyle that I want to live and be unimpeded in doing so, but.
My main thing with money growing up, and eventually how this series is going to end, I'm going to have somebody interview me so I can tell my silly story. But I always say that money can buy you a lot of things. Some people say money buys you happiness. What money does to me, it can band-aid your unhappiness and make you think that you're happy. But money can't buy one thing, and it's class.
Yeah. And
to me, a lot of the more underprivileged people or people who earned or know the value of money, they come up and they have class.
Yeah.
They may not dress the part, they may not sit there and yes ma'am, no ma'am, everything, but for the most part, class, and respect. And money don't buy that. Money don't give you that or anything like that. And a lot of people forget that. They think, "Whoa, I have money, so these people have to like me." Well, no, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
you got money, you're an asshole still.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times money can create resentment and will make people despise you because of it. But you know, to your point, money doesn't buy happiness. To me, 100% it does. Just like we talked about earlier, you know, purpose is what drives happiness. What I will say is money enhances happiness.
Yeah.
You know, if you're already happy and now all of a sudden you've got money, like for sure you're going to enjoy your life more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it's not gonna make you happy or unhappy. It's gonna you know, enhance whether or not you are or not. You know, because if you're unhappy and broke, then you're double miserable. You know,
Yeah.
if you're happy and loaded, then you're twice as happy.
Exactly. So you heard Mike say he was in the SEALs. That was cool and all. You heard him say he saved people's lives. That was cool and all. But last night, I believe it was around 10 o'clock when I texted you this. When Mike became my hero is when I found out that Mike trained and you collaborated for the K9 Rico in Call of Duty, and it was in 2013, and they still use Rico today. The one that just came out last year. Matter of fact, the player I use runs Rico right beside him.
Yeah. Well, I think the dog's name in the game is Riley, right?
It may be.
Yeah.
It may be. I'll have to go check that.
The two dogs that we used were Ruger and Rico, were the real names the dogs used. Ruger was a good friend of mine, Chris. And it was for all the kind of in close scenes where the dog's turning his head and drinking water and walking and, you know, just turning around and doing all the kind of basic mannerisms that dogs do. And then all of the operational stuff where he's, you know, launching and doing the attack scenes and stuff is my dog Rico, who is 25 feet away, passed out on a dog bed. I mean, at this point he's, you know, 12, 13 years old, but it's hard to believe that was 7 years ago, you know, when he was in his prime. But yeah, it was a really neat experience. I'm not a gamer. Like to this day, you know, surprised a lot of people. I've still never played that game, even though my dog is in it.
I'm unfriended now.
Yeah, but it's just, you know, I think for me, I was just having this conversation with a client friend of mine that we were talking about the drive simulators, the race simulators that I've heard are pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it's like I want to drive the car for real. I don't want to pretend to do it, you know. And so for me, there's plenty of guys that have my background that love video games. I'm just not one of them. But for me, like having done it for real, now pretending to do it just doesn't do anything for me, you know.
Yeah.
And I've just never been a big video game guy, period. But so anyway, the experience was really neat, though. You know, they put him in this Lycra bodysuit with these little reflector balls all over it, and then had these cameras on track and pulley systems and this gridded floor that we did all the work, you know, and did 3 8-hour days of, you know, bite work scenes where he had to go up, bite work scenes where he had to go down, you know, from the side, you know, from every angle that you see in the game, basically. I mean, every angle and position that the dog is going to go and bite somebody, you know, legs, arms, back, front, you know, side, you name it. You know, we just did it over and over and over, and then they got all of it, and then you know, there's some action figures that were made of the dog that people have sent, and you know, for that, at the height of when that game was really popular, it was pretty neat to have the dog. You know, I did some demonstrations at schools where, you know, when kids found out that was a dog, I mean, they lost their minds. You know, these kids in like junior high and in high school, whatever, they're huge into video games, and like that's the Call of Duty dog or whatever. They couldn't believe it. But
yeah, kids shouldn't let their parents play that damn game.
yeah.
I mean, parents shouldn't let their kids play that game. It's bad. Like the new one. I've never been to war. My dad was a boot camp sergeant, and so he cussed like a sailor. And that's how this game is now. Like, you're jumping out of a helicopter, and the dude's like, all right, let's get ready to go to fucking war. And it's like, what the hell did you just say to me, man? And it's awesome. You know, and people are buying this for their 11-year-old, and then they wonder why the 11-year-old goes to school and tells their teacher, hey, fuck off. You know, it's like, it's that video game, man.
Yeah.
But I hope to do a lot more interviews with you. Not just interviews, videos. I mean, we do a lot of runs together, which I want to talk to you about one later. But I want to do a lot more work with you as far as car stuff and things like that.
Yeah.
I like having you on the channel. You're real, you're authentic, and you don't BS. And apparently, according to everything, you're an American hero, and you train heroes. So,
I mean, I appreciate it. I certainly don't view myself that way or consider to be in that boat, but I'm humbled at your appreciation, and the service on my end was absolutely my pleasure. I was honored to be in a position to do it. So
here's what had me up thinking before I close this out. Last night, I stay up super late just thinking of the next day because my mind's always working. I was sitting there thinking, a guy in your position, have you ever sat there and just thought, 50 years from now, Mike's gone, but Mike trained all these dogs. You left a path for people to keep training these dogs, and basically your legacy is going to live on through the animals, saving lives and protecting people from now until something better comes out. And from everything I've read outside of Wikipedia, going through your bios and stuff, like I said, it's just a rabbit hole of information you can find out. You're the top of the food chain when it comes to training some of these dogs, and how's that feel to know that forever they're going to be using your techniques?
Well, I mean, training wise, I would say that I don't really feel like I invented anything, and I'm sure that they'll continue to get better and better, long past me being gone. In terms of the inspiration of kind of the next generation, it's a lot of the driving force behind why I do what I do. Kind of a pay it forward type of thing. To me, I feel an obligation to do it, not wanting to have a legacy that doesn't expire or to be remembered or anything. Like, to me, that really is irrelevant. To me, what it is that I know when I was in high school, junior high and high school, and being inspired by both my grandfathers who were in World War II, and then reading Vietnam era SEAL books that inspired me to join. I mean, it let me know who the SEALs were, what they did, and why I wanted to be one. And so to me, the books that I've written, to be able to get mail from elementary, junior high, high school kids that have read the book and now they want to go join the SEALs and be a canine handler because of it. To me, there is no greater compliment than that. And to me, that's really what it's all about, to be able to do something for the next generation that the generation prior to mine did for me and for us. To me, like, I feel an obligation to do that. And so to me, it feels good, to be able to do something for them that was done for me. So I'll keep doing it as long as I can.
And that's why I like Mike. He's humble. Most people in his position are humble. So keep that in mind. Stay humble and stay positive. So we're going to be out on this one. Make sure you go to his channel, like, subscribe. His podcasts come up. They're long, but they are very, very informative. You get to hear some stuff that you wouldn't hear anywhere else, I don't think. I watched the one the other day with the Army Ranger, and it was just, damn.
Yeah.
It was just damn. I mean, it was a good episode. I texted you right after. I was like, holy crap, dude, that was amazing. So I appreciate you coming on, and we're going to go do hood rat shit. Peace.